This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're talking about something that might disturb your perspective, but it's a discussion that needs to happen. You know what I keep witnessing everywhere? Men in their 40s, ordinary men, not millionaires, not catalog models, suddenly receiving messages from women who wouldn't have acknowledged their existence 15 years earlier, women who invested their entire 20s and 30s rejecting anyone under 6 feet, anyone earning less than 6 figures, anyone without the complete presentation. Now suddenly these same women are initiating contact, demonstrating interest, being accommodating about requirements. And these guys are puzzled. They're thinking, did I finally arrive? Did I finally become desirable? Am I suddenly the man women pursue? And before you respond, let me ask you something. When did you become more desirable? Was it at 42 when you had less hair than you did at 25? Was it when your metabolism decelerated? Was it when you developed those stress lines from a decade of corporate grinding? Consider it. I'll give you a moment. The answer is you didn't. You didn't suddenly become more desirable. Something else transformed. The market transformed. And once you grasp what actually occurred, you'll never perceive this sudden attention the same way again. Let me sketch a picture for you. Imagine there's a marketplace. At one end, you have buyers. At the other end, you have sellers. For years, the buyers held all the leverage. They could be incredibly selective. They could demand premium quality for average prices. They could eliminate 95% of what was available and still have choices. Then something shifts. Supply decreases. Demand stays constant. Suddenly, those buyers who were so selective, they're competing with each other for what remains. And the sellers they rejected years ago, those sellers aren't as available anymore. Some found other buyers. Some decided they're content without buyers. That's what's occurring in the dating market for women past 40, and that's why ordinary men are suddenly receiving attention they never received before. Here's how the market functioned when she was 25. Let's call her Jessica. She's working entry-level marketing, earning maybe $40,000 annually, lives with roommates, drives a Honda Civic that's aged poorly, but on dating platforms, she's connecting with physicians, attorneys, finance professionals, men earning 6 figures, men who own property, men who are 6'2" with abs and compelling hobbies. She goes on dates with successful 35-year-old men who take her to expensive establishments, cover everything, compete for her attention, and this creates something significant, an illusion. She can connect with high-value men, she can secure dates with them. She interprets this as, this is my tier. These are the men I deserve. What she doesn't comprehend, what most women at 25 don't comprehend, is that attention doesn't equal commitment. These successful men in their 30s and 40s, they're dating her casually. They're not committing. They're enjoying the company of a young, attractive woman with no baggage, no ex-husband, no kids, no emotional barriers built from 20 years of dating disasters. But she doesn't perceive this distinction. She sees connections. She sees dates. She sees attention from high-value men, and she thinks, okay, this is what I can access. So when an ordinary 27-year-old guy demonstrates interest, earns $55,000, drives a normal vehicle, lives in a decent apartment, would actually commit to her, she rejects him. Not tall enough, not successful enough, not exciting enough. She has hundreds of connections. She can afford to be selective. The leverage is entirely in her hands. Here's how the filtering functioned, and this is based on actual data from dating platforms. Height, minimum 6 feet. That immediately eliminates 85% of men. Income must earn at minimum $75,000 to $100,000. By the time she's finished filtering, she's left with maybe 2 to 3% of men on the platform. And here's the reality. Those 2 to 3% of men, they understand they're in the top tier. They understand they have choices. So why would they commit to her specifically when they can date beautiful women in their 20s indefinitely? But the calculation doesn't register yet. She's 25. She has time. Relationships are something she'll get serious about later. Right now, she's focusing on her career, her friends, her experiences, living her best life. She'll settle down eventually when she's ready, when she finds someone who meets all her criteria. You understand what I'm expressing? Fast forward to 32. Jessica's performing better professionally, maybe earning $65,000 now. But the dating market, it's shifted in ways she didn't anticipate. Those successful men in their late 30s and 40s who were taking her out at 25, they're now dating women in their mid-20s. Jessica's no longer the youngest option in their rotation. She's competing with women 5 to 7 years younger who possess exactly what she had at 25. Youth, optimism, no baggage. The connections slow down. The quality of connections decreases. The men messaging her aren't quite the caliber she became accustomed to. But her standards haven't adjusted because her self-perception hasn't adjusted. She still believes she deserves what she was receiving at 25. And she starts hearing things, where are all the good men? Why is everyone already in relationships? Men are intimidated by successful women. Men can't handle strong women. These are coping mechanisms, explanations that protect her ego from the real truth. The market has shifted, and she hasn't adjusted her expectations to match her current market value. At 32, she still has options. but they're not the options she wants. The men demonstrating genuine interests, the ordinary guys earning 60 to 80,000, the solid guys who would commit, she still filters them out because she remembers the attention she received at 25, and she believes that's her baseline. Here's where everything transforms. Somewhere between 36 and 40, something registers. The biological timeline she could ignore in her 20s becomes impossible to deny. If she wants children, the window is closing rapidly. Medical facts don't care about her career trajectory. Fertility drops dramatically after 35, plummets after 40. This isn't opinion, this is biology. If she doesn't want children, she's facing a different problem. The men she's been filtering for, they're increasingly partnered. The successful, attractive men in their 40s, many are married or in serious relationships. The ones who aren't, they either have significant struggles, are dating women 10 to 15 years younger, or have navigated divorce and are extremely cautious. The dating pool hasn't just shrunk, it's evaporated. And suddenly, those ordinary men she filtered out at 25 and 30 are looking substantially more appealing. Here's what actually occurred. And I'm going to explain this through basic market economics. In any market, value is determined by supply and demand. In the dating market, different ages have different dynamics. Women at 25, high supply of interested men, can be extremely selective, high perceived market value, leverage in the relationship dynamic. Women at 40, dramatically reduced supply of interested men in their age range, competing with younger women for limited high-value men, facing biological timeline pressure. Leverage has shifted entirely. Men at 25, lower perceived value because they're less established, competing with older, more successful men, less leverage in the dating dynamic. Men at 40%, if they've built success, their market value has increased. Dating pool includes women from 25 to 45, more options than they had at 25, significantly more leverage. This is the correction. The leverage that favored her at 25 now favors you at 40, and the women who filtered you out years ago are recognizing you have choices too. Let me tell you about a guy I know. Call him Mike. He's 43, earns decent money, nothing spectacular. Good guy, average looking, stable employment. In his 20s, he received almost no attention from women. He'd message women on dating platforms, maybe receive a response 1 out of 20 times. Dates were rare, relationships were rarer. Now at 43, he's receiving messages from women first. Women with master's degrees, women with quality careers, women who are attractive, accomplished, the complete presentation. And Mike's confused. He's thinking, what transformed? Did I suddenly become attractive? I told him, Mike, nothing about you transformed. Look at yourself at 25 versus 43. You're less attractive now by conventional standards. Less hair, more weight, more stress. But the women messaging you, their options transformed. The men they actually wanted at 25 aren't available at 40. So now you look quality, not because you improved, because their alternatives disappeared. Here's what to observe. She's in a hurry, pushing for commitment quickly, talking about cohabitation after a few months, bringing up marriage or kids within weeks. This isn't about you specifically. This is about her timeline. She's operating under deadline pressure. She still talks about her type. I usually date taller men. I'm normally attracted to more adventurous guys. I typically pursue someone more successful. She's communicating directly. You don't fit her preference pattern, but she's willing to make an exception because she has to. She settles visibly. You can observe her disappointment when your apartment isn't as impressive as she hoped. When your vehicle is practical instead of impressive. When your vacation plans are modest. She's constantly recalibrating her expectations downward. She compares constantly. References ex-boyfriends who were more successful, better looking, more exciting. Talks about the life she imagined versus the life you can provide. She's mourning the loss of what she thought she deserved. I knew a woman, let's call her Sarah. For years, she filtered men relentlessly. Not tall enough, not wealthy enough, not accomplished enough. She literally maintained a spreadsheet. Height minimum, salary minimum, travel experience minimum, education level minimum, vehicle value minimum. She was working an entry-level position herself at the time. Fast forward to 38. Suddenly those must-haves became nice-to-haves, then optional. She started dating a guy who wouldn't have made her first consideration at 28. Good guy, stable, ordinary in every way. But here's what I observed. She resented him. She never expressed it directly, but you could perceive it. Every time they went to dinner at a chain establishment instead of somewhere upscale. Every time he drove his practical sedan instead of something impressive. Every time she looked at friends who married earlier and had superior lives. She settled, and she resented settling, even though the settling was entirely her own doing. Here's something men don't anticipate. When women settle, they resent it. Even if they don't consciously acknowledge it, the resentment builds. She looks at her friend who married at 28, married an ordinary guy. At the time, he was just ordinary, but they grew together, built together. Now at 40, that couple has a quality home, established existence, teenage kids, deep bond. That could have been her with any number of ordinary men who demonstrated interest in her 20s. Or she looks at successful men her age dating women in their late 20s, and she understands if those men are single and high value, they're not dating women their own age. They have no reason to. This creates a psychological trap. She understands she waited too long. She understands she filtered too harshly. She understands she bet on being able to attract top-tier men indefinitely, and she lost that bet. But she can't admit this because admitting it destroys her self-image. So the resentment gets directed at you. You become the symbol of her settling. Every compromise she makes feels like evidence of her failure. This manifests in revealing ways. Picking fights over small things, comparing your relationship to others constantly, never quite being satisfied with what you provide, maintaining a grass is greener mindset, keeping an eye on other options just in case. If you're dating a divorced woman past 40, there's another layer. That ex-husband remains in her existence and it affects everything. She compares everything to her marriage. Your relationship isn't evaluated on its own merits. It's constantly measured against what she had before. And memory is selective. That marriage failed for serious reasons, but over time, she'll romanticize the positive parts while you're experiencing the daily reality. Her financial entanglements, child support, alimony, shared property. Her financial situation is complicated and it directly affects you. If things get serious, her ex's decisions impact her, which impacts you. The kids factor. If she has children, you're not just dating her. You're entering a complex system with an ex-husband who has permanent influence over her schedule, her stress, her priorities, her finances. You will always be secondary to the kids, and the ex has permanent access through those kids. The emotional damage, divorce isn't clean. She carries trauma, trust struggles, walls built from years of conflict. You inherit all this. Every argument you have, she's partly arguing with you and partly arguing with patterns from her marriage. Let's examine actual numbers because this isn't opinion. It's mathematical reality. You at 40 can date women from roughly 25 to 45. Dating pool of 20 years worth of women. If you're financially successful and reasonably attractive, you're in demand. Women in their 20s and early 30s are often receptive to older men with resources and stability. Her at 40, most successful men her age are either taken or dating younger. Dating younger men, guys in their 30s, usually doesn't function long term. Those men are targeting women in their 20s and early 30s. Dating older men, 50s and up, means addressing their baggage, health struggles, retirement complications. The pool of acceptable, available men may be 5 to 10% of what it was at 25. This is why women past 40 finally notice ordinary men. Not because these men became more attractive, because the alternatives disappeared, the fertility reality. This makes people uncomfortable, but you can't discuss dating past 40 honestly without addressing it. Fertility isn't politically correct, but it's biologically real. A woman at 25 has approximately a 25% chance of pregnancy per cycle. At 40, that drops to about 5%. By 45, less than 1%. These aren't opinions, these are medical statistics. If a 40-year-old woman wants biological children, she's facing dramatically reduced fertility, increased risk of complications, higher miscarriage rates, increased genetic risks, expensive fertility treatments with low success rates, a very narrow window. This creates desperation. That ordinary man who would have been invisible at 25, he suddenly becomes interesting at 40 because he's willing to have kids with her. Her standards drop, not because the man became more appealing, because her biological timeline eliminated her ability to be selective. For men, fertility doesn't decline nearly as dramatically. A 40-year-old man can still father healthy children. A 50-year-old man can still father healthy children. This asymmetry creates a massive shift in market leverage. If you're an ordinary man in your 40s, receiving attention from women who wouldn't have looked at you 15 years ago, here's what you need to understand. You are not her dream, you are her reality. There's a difference. She's not choosing you because you swept her off her feet. She's choosing you because her actual preferences are unavailable and you're the best she can do with her current options. This doesn't mean she can't develop genuine feelings. People can grow to love what they initially settled for. But you need to enter this with eyes open about what you actually represent in her life trajectory. Her urgency isn't flattering. If she's pushing for commitment rapidly, if she's talking about serious steps early, this isn't because you're so remarkable she can't risk losing you. This is because her timeline is desperate and you happen to be available and acceptable. The leverage dynamic has shifted. For the first time, you might actually have choices. Women your age are interested. Younger women might be interested if you're established. This is unfamiliar territory for men who invested their 20s and 30s being filtered out. Don't let this sudden attention cloud your judgment. Settling functions both ways. Just because she's settling for you doesn't mean you have to settle for her. You can have standards. You can filter based on character, compatibility, genuine attraction, shared values. You don't have to accept interest just because it's offered. Here's what men in their 40s increasingly recognize. Dating women significantly younger might actually be simpler. A 40-year-old man dating a 28-year-old woman, completely different dynamic. She doesn't have the baggage, no ex-husband, no kids, usually no emotional walls built from years of disasters. You're getting someone less cynical, less jaded, more optimistic. She respects male success. Younger women often appreciate a man who's established, who has his existence together, who can provide stability. For her, your ordinary success at 40 is impressive. For women your age, it's just meeting minimum standards. No biological panic. A 28-year-old might want kids eventually, but she's not operating under the same deadline pressure. The relationship can develop naturally without the desperate urgency of someone whose window is closing. You're the higher value. In a relationship with a woman in her late 20s, you're the one with more choices, more experience, more resources. The leverage dynamic favors you. Compare this to dating women your age, where she's constantly evaluating whether she settled too much. This is why successful men in their 40s and 50s often date younger. It's not just about physical attraction. It's about the entire dynamic being healthier when you're the higher value partner. For women reading this, the time to secure a high-quality man is in your 20s and early 30s. Not because you're shallow, but because that's when you have the most choices and the most leverage. The focus on yourself, relationships can wait advice, has destroyed countless chances at the relationships women actually wanted. If you're serious about marriage and family, you can't pursue that casually in your mid to late 30s and expect the same results you could have gotten at 25. The market doesn't function that way. Biology doesn't function that way. For men in their 40s, don't confuse sudden attention with genuine desire. Understand what you represent. You're not suddenly more attractive. You're suddenly more available relative to their shrinking options. Be strategic. If a woman past 40 is interested, ask yourself, would she have been interested 15 years ago? Is her interest based on who I am or what I represent? Can I observe evidence of genuine attraction or just pragmatic selection? Is she rushing this because of me or because of her timeline? Here's a truth that makes everyone uncomfortable. Dating markets operate on supply, demand, and value, just like any other market. And in the dating market, different traits have different values at different ages. Youth and fertility have market value. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, men are biologically programmed to find these traits attractive because they indicate reproductive viability. This isn't cultural, it's evolutionary. Resources, stability, and status have market value. Women are biologically programmed to value these traits because they indicate ability to provide and protect. This also isn't cultural, it's evolutionary. These preferences don't disappear because we live in modern times. The programming is deep, ancient, powerful. What transforms is the relative bargaining leverage at different life stages. Women have more leverage in their 20s because youth and fertility are at peak value. Men gain leverage in their 40s if they've built resources and stability, because these traits increase with age while female fertility decreases. This isn't fair, it isn't equal, it just is. If you're an ordinary man in your 40s finally receiving the attention you deserved in your 20s, don't let gratitude blind you to reality. Understand what shifted, not you, the market, and make your choices accordingly. If this perspective clarified dynamics you've sensed but couldn't articulate, understand you're not isolated. Millions of men are processing these precise situations right now, attempting choices that will shape their futures. The objective isn't rejecting women or avoiding partnership. The objective is making informed choices grounded in reality rather than flattery, in demonstrated value rather than desperate urgency, and in what someone actually offers rather than what you're told you should accept. You deserve someone who genuinely selects you, who desired you authentically, who commits because they want you specifically, not because you're the remaining viable option when preferred choices evaporated. Don't accept being someone's fallback. Don't pledge your resources, your future, and your emotional investment to someone whose poor choices created circumstances you're now anticipated to resolve. Drop your experience in the comments. Have you witnessed this shift? Are you experiencing this attention now that you didn't receive before? And if this provided value, subscribe. This channel exists to deliver truth about relationship mechanics that mainstream narratives actively conceal to keep you confused in making decisions that serve everyone except you. The truth might sting, but it's far less damaging than discovering it after you've already committed everything.